This is a Film Stories original podcast.
When you make decisions for your company, you always look for the no-brainers. And if you have a lot of mailing and shipping to do, Stamps.com is the ultimate no-brainer. It streamlines your process to make your business more efficient, which makes you less busy. Mail checks, invoices, legal documents, books, and everything you need to keep your business running with Stamps.com. Seamlessly connect with every major marketplace and shopping cart if you sell online. Schedule package pickups through the dashboard and automatically see your cheapest and fastest shipping options from different carriers, with rates up to 89% off USPS and UPS rates. And with the Stamps.com mobile app, you can take care of mailing and shipping wherever you are, even on the go. Make the same no-brainer decision as over 1 million other business decision makers with Stamps.com. Sign up at Stamps.com with code PROGRAM for a special offer that includes a 4-week trial, plus free postage and a free digital scale. No long-term commitments or contracts. That's Stamps.com, code PROGRAM.
We made this.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Xcast. As ever, the truth is in here, and we are here with some post-season 9 coverage. I am your host, Carl Sweeney, and this is another script episode. We've done these in the past, and they're always very enlightening. So it's where we look at the differences between what was in the scripts for these episodes and what we actually saw on the screen. And joined by a couple of guests on this one. First and foremost, I think, is the woman who provides us with all the useful information because she owns many X-Files scripts, Cathy Glinski. Hello, Cathy.
Hi, Carl.
Is it still you own copies of all but one script, every episode bar one? Is that right?
Every one except The Lost Art of Forehead Sweat. And I'm very angry at myself. I forgot to even tell Darren Morgan that when I met him, that I have every script except that one that he wrote, just to see how he would react. But yeah, I do have them all except for that. We
could have made it a precondition of us interviewing him on the Xcast. You can only come on the podcast if you provide us with a copy of.
No, thanks. I'm good.
Is it a particularly elusive script? Is it just that it's not been made available? That one.
It has not. I know one person who has it, and he has a lot of conditions for sharing it. So one day it'll get out there like the others at some point.
Okay, great stuff. And Cathy and I are joined by Cortlan Waters Bartley. Hello, Cortlan.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Yeah, I'm okay, thank you. And I feel like you're the season 9. I don't know if you're a season 9 lover. Is that putting it too strongly? I feel like you're more sympathetic to season 9 than almost anybody else. Is that fair?
Lover is a strong word. Let's maybe not go that far.
Enthusiast, maybe.
Apologist, maybe.
I like that word. Yeah.
Apologist. Yeah, I think that's probably true. I try really hard not to hate season 9 as much as everyone hates it.
I definitely feel like it's a good thing not to be knee-jerk about season 9. And I think a lot of people are. So I think that's fair enough.
I agree. Although I just re-listened to my last episode of season 9, which was William. I'm really sorry, everyone. I did try. It didn't work out that way.
Well, we might touch on that in this very episode, indeed. So what we're going to do is Cathy has very kindly prepared us a document which includes like excerpts from the scripts and little notes about things that have been changed. So I'm going to be looking at that as Cathy talks, and I think Cortlan and I are going to react to what Cathy says. We're going to unleash our inner thespians at certain points as and when required. And it's been fun in the past. I think these episodes actually are very interesting because there's a lot of details here potentially that people will not know, I think. So yeah, it's always a good thing to do. Cathy, before we start going through it episode by episode, I suppose on the podcast this year, we've been talking a lot about the extent to which season 9 is different from the rest of the show. Obviously, in terms of what's going on in the narrative and whatever. But how about on the scripting side? Does anything feel different about these scripts? We've been talking about, does the show feel tired and worn out? Is there any sense of that coming through in the writing?
What I sense most is that the writers don't yet know Monica Reyes and don't know a lot about John Doggett. And yet there's an attempt to put them in the place of the rest of the show, which has been going on for so many years. Like, we know Mulder and Scully and we know what the X-Files are. And here we have two new characters. And so it seems sort of rushed. Like, we don't know their characters and we're supposed to suddenly accept them in a certain position. That could just be my own bias as I'm reading the scripts. But it seems to me like a lot is put up front that shouldn't necessarily be there. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but I don't know Reyes well enough to know something about her, and it's sort of assumed that we all know that. I don't know. As far as tired, this could be my own bias too, but I feel like there are times where the writers are tired of the fans' complaints, and we've talked about that in certain episodes. So that comes across in just some of the descriptions. But for the most part, these are scripts for a television show, and there's a lot to love about them. So I always find them interesting to read. I know it's not everyone's thing, but I always find just the way they create a story, the descriptions they use, all that's in there. I'll leave it at that until we get to a specific example.
Well, just quickly on the fan complaints things, because I know that's obviously relevant, and we might touch on one or two of the examples maybe as we go along, but it might be relevant to an episode like Scary Monsters. But are you saying it's a bit more widespread than that? It's recurring several times?
I think in Scary Monsters and in Jump the Shark, maybe a little bit in Sunshine Days, although it was more in Sunshine Days, it was, okay, can't we all just get along? It was, here's a love letter to the fandom, and we're going to say goodbye now, and don't hate us, kind of thing. That's just, like I said, it could just be my complete bias, having watched the show for so long and then read all the scripts. That's what I'm seeing in these episodes, but maybe it's not there. I don't know. And then with Chris Carter's mythology episodes, there's a sense of, no, guys, I'm telling you, this is we've been working towards this all along. Really, really, really.
Yeah.
And I think that really is there. I don't think I'm reading that in. I think it's really there.
Okay, Cathy. So, just take it away, basically. But we're going to start with the very first episode, aren't we? Nothing Important Happened Today.
Yeah. And one of the things I love reading scripts is the way the writer will set a scene with a description of a character or a place, and it's something that obviously you never hear it on screen because it's words setting a scene. But if it's done really well and then everything comes together in production, I can read the description and then picture it in my head. And so that's what I look for. This first one is from the teaser in Nothing Important Happens Today, and it's a description of Wormus, who I can't picture in my head, the man, but I still like this description. And this was the guy who works for the water district. Is that right?
Yeah, who meets with Lucy Lawless's character in the bar up front.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. And so at the very beginning, he's served a drink with an ice cube in it, and he pulls the ice cube out. And that gives us a clue of what's coming up. But then the description is, Wormus isn't bad looking, but the upholstery of age has erased the sharper lines of his face, making it anyone's guess what he must have looked like 2 marriages ago, before the cynicism and the liquor that now give him temporary relief from it. I really like that. I think that's a really nice use of words. What he must have looked like two marriages ago puts an image in your head, Who's this guy? He's worn down with time. I thought that was a good one. And it goes on to describe Lucy Lawless approaching him. And I don't particularly care for that description, so I'm going to skip over that.
Yeah, but the upholstery of age, that sounds like, I don't know, the title of a low budget independent film or something, doesn't it? It's got that feeling to it.
Right.
I like the description. I can't really picture the guy. I feel like he looks, mid-40s. I never really thought about his cynicism too much, I don't think, when I watched the episode. How about you, Cortlan?
No, I did not note any cynicism or really an upholstery of age, but I did have to, I pulled up the screen grab from the episode so that I could picture him. And then I looked on IMDb to find out who this actor is, because he looked sort of vaguely familiar, but I might just be remembering him from the X-Files.
Yeah.
So there is always that danger. But his like sort of top bill on, IMDb, they like list like, here's what you're known for as Austin Powers, the spy who shagged me. So I got nothing
Never
for
seen
this
that.
guy. No, I got nothing. Nicholas Walker is his name.
Okay. Because I can picture this scene, but I can't picture this guy particularly. I know what scene's happening, but I did like the description.
I think that is a relevant point, actually, which we were talking about off air just before we started, which is that I think we all feel that our recall of season 9 is a bit shakier than with other seasons. I know, Cathy, you were definitely saying that. And I've seen Nothing Important Happened Today, part 1, a good few times. I've seen that scene quite a few times. And yeah, I just can't bring the details to mind in the way that I could with the earlier seasons when we did these script episodes. So I think that's going to be a recurring theme in this conversation, me saying I can't remember.
Definitely was for me as I was preparing this. In any other season of the show, I can read a script and I can think, oh, that's different. It immediately pops out to me, or that's something that I at least need to check, or that's a really good description. That's exactly what we saw on screen. And reading these, it did not have that same kind of recognition. I just don't know the episodes as well. And I watched season 9 many times, just not, as Carl was saying, maybe not with as much enthusiasm as I watched some of the others.
Enthusiasm must be a big part of it, yeah.
I was going to ask Cathy, when you put together this document, were you watching as you were sort of snipping pieces out of the script? Otherwise, I'm not sure I could do it if I wasn't watching as it.
Oh yeah, I have to, and that's what I've done the few times we've done this. Is I'll read the script, find something that looks worth talking about, and then I watch the episode and to compare. Did I get that right? Is that really in here? Is this deleted? Is this So I did that with this, and I did this as I was doing my season 9 rewatch. I think I started it when the X-Cast started in season 9, but then I sort of finished way before you did. So that's, I have to then watch the episode. I can't just think of something to talk about unless I compare the script. Because there have been times where I found something in a script and I'm like, oh, that never made it to the episode. That would be really cool. And then I watch the episode and there it is. I just never noticed it before.
Okay, so what else have we got for this episode then, Cathy?
So this is Chris Carter's description of previously on the X-Files at the very beginning of Nothing Important Happened Today. And I'm going to read this whole blurb because it just sort of sets the tone for the season, I think. So it says, previously on the X-Files, this act will begin with a recap of the 2-part season finale, for which this episode completes a quartet. Most importantly, we see Scully's fear about her pregnancy, and Agent Doggett's and Agent Mulder's call to arms when her unborn child, produced miraculously to a barren Scully, is connected to a government medical facility conducting advanced genetics and human cloning experiments. An old military associate of Doggett's tells him it's part of a government conspiracy to create super soldier. Mulder believes otherwise, making an alien connection. But whatever the truth, it involves Alex Krycek and leads to his death, a revenge killing by A.D. Skinner, which precedes Skinner and Doggett's narrow escape from 2 super soldier FBI agents who pursue them in an FBI parking garage, only to perish. Okay, there's more. It goes on, but it's like trying to sum up absolutely everything, not only in the last 2 episodes, but really he's defending his life here. I mean, it's just, it just amazes me how he could string all these words together. And I mean, I can picture them in my head. I mean, it's there, certainly.
I strongly object to referring to this 2-parter as the second half of a quartet.
Right.
With Essence and Existence. I just object. I can't do it. I'm so sorry.
No, because it changes gears completely. It undoes Essence of Existence.
It does. And existence doesn't end with a to be continued. For it to be a quartet, it would need to be 3 episodes that end with
so much for the plan.
Do they usually describe the previously recaps like this, or is this fairly atypical?
This was much longer and more involved. And later, and I think I cut this out, but later that we have a recap within a recap. I think it's for Nothing Important Happened Today too. There's a recap, and then inside that recap is a recap within the recap. It just goes on. And to me, it's like Chris Carter is saying, here, this is it, you guys. We've made sense all along. I'm just laying it out for you. Everyone knows this, but just in case, here you go. And
it does sort of feel like, even as you were reading, right? Like it does sort of feel like, here are all these threads that I'm holding, and now watch me like knot them together really quick. Like, like in this paragraph. That's sort of
right. Because it's
like to me.
I think what I read was all like one sentence, wasn't it? I mean, I stopped because I couldn't keep reading that far, but it's like, it's all, just a string of clauses tied together, which is exactly like the mythology storyline at this point.
And the word super soldiers is always in inverted commas as well. It's worth saying. I mean, I do remember this montage being quite exciting in the episode itself. It's just the rest of the episode it's mainly the problem. So the episode then switches around the ordering of some of the scenes from the script, is it? Is that right?
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. In the script, we have the very first scene after the opening credits is Doggett, and you see Doggett in bed. And then it cuts to Mulder in the shower, and they switch those two so that, I don't know, my thought is maybe people want to know what's going on with Mulder, but maybe it's, all right, let's get Mulder out of the way and then move forward.
Yeah, he's kind of the elephant in the room until he's dealt with, I suppose, isn't he, in a way? It'd be kind of odd to leave it till a few scenes into the act, I guess. Yeah. So the scenes themselves are fairly, it's just the order with those scenes is different. Yeah,
I think they were exactly as they were scripted. It's just they'd flip-flopped who we saw first.
Yeah.
And then I kind of like this. There's the scene where Doggett goes to Mulder's apartment looking for him, and there's an Elvis reference. It said, Doggett comes toward us now through the kitchen with a concerned look on his face, which we don't understand until he steps into close-up, camera pivoting around him to find that the apartment has been cleaned out, walls stripped bare, furniture removed. Mulder has clearly left the building. So I like that, just given Mulder's love for Elvis. It was a nice way to send him off.
Okay, so it feels like maybe our acting skills are going to come into play soon.
And when I first sent you this, I said maybe Carl and Cortlan should act this out, and I'm like, no, they definitely have to act.
So this is Fulmer and Reyes, yeah?
Yes, and it's a deleted scene after Reyes has seen Fulmer in his office. They meet at the bar. And is any of the bar scene in the episode? I can't remember.
They do meet in the bar in the episode, yeah.
Okay, so it's just this bit of dialogue, which is, to me, extremely awkward. I'll read the
stage directions,
stage directions, and let you just go for it.
Okay, so I need to. Fulmer's really like slimy, isn't he? So, right, okay. Trying to find my motivation. Okay. Hope I wasn't too presumptuous, Monica. I ordered you a martini.
Hey, just because we didn't rip our clothes off in your office this morning doesn't mean I'm a complete bore. Anyway, I called and asked you out, right?
Right. I just didn't know if it was business or what it was for.
The barkeep brings Monica's martini now. Brad watches her take a drink. He's completely taken with her, but being careful here.
Ooh, keep those martinis coming.
She tips her drink to him. He lifts his for a friendly toast.
You actually confused me this morning in my office. I thought you were avoiding me.
Maybe I was avoiding myself. And those tapes you pulled out of your desk drawer weren't exactly Pamela and Tommy Lee, were they?
Monica gives him that smile of hers, a smile that makes you wonder if the newest addition to the X-Files might have a secret appreciation for Mulder's bottom drawer porno stash.
So she does grin in the episode, doesn't she? Because that line is in. She does mention the Pamela and Tommy Lee thing. I think,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so she does kind of chuckle at that, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, but that just like, okay, that's not necessarily how I read her reaction.
No,
What do I
never,
know?
Yeah.
Just so awkward. Keep those
Yeah,
martinis
really
coming.
awkward.
Martinis, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've never heard
Like I
that
said, no one
before.
knows Monica yet. And so anything they write we're supposed to take that as characterization because we don't know her yet.
Mhm.
And I'm like, that's weird. Okay, whatever.
I mean, she is odd, but that's
Yeah.
maybe too far.
Yeah.
I suppose that's a good point, really, because like the Pamela and Tommy Lee reference, I just read it when she said that as, that's a fairly widespread pop culture reference point that pretty much anyone could reach for. I never went beyond that to think maybe she appreciates Mulder's porno collection or whatever.
Okay. And
Yeah.
I didn't know what it was talking about and just never really cared. So
Oh,
I don't. I
okay.
guess I'm missing the point completely of that whole line, but that's okay.
Okay.
We can skip over that.
I mean, I'm happy to fill in the history if you want, but I'm not sure we really want to.
Okay. That's
How
fine.
far are we
I'll look
going?
it up
How far are we
later.
going down this road?
I sort of get, from where we are. We can just move on. Forget that. Okay.
Let's move on. So Nothing Important Happened Today 2.
And there's not much I had from this script, but there's this one description of Doggett that I liked. And it's near the very end, I believe. It's when Doggett is in Kirsch's office and he's about to discover something from Kirsch. And it says, John Doggett, aggressively dubious. And I just thought that was such a nice description of how he comes across so much of the time. Aggressively dubious, like, I'm not going to believe this and you can't make me believe this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
He's like mad about it.
yeah. I was like, how dare you show me something that I don't already know? I don't okay.
That is a good description. Yeah. No, I like that. Yeah. And I think he does play it. That does seem like he's playing that note, doesn't it?
It really does. It just perfectly sums up how he acts a lot of the time. And then I just included this bit of the script because it seems to me that most people miss the reason Mulder left, even though it's completely included in the episode. It was like Kirsch told Mulder what the danger is, and then Scully made Mulder leave to keep her and the baby safe.
Mm-hmm.
And it's right there. And most people just think, oh, Mulder left because he couldn't handle being a father or whatever they think the reason is. Mulder's a deadbeat dad. But they miss the fact that no, Scully made him leave, and that's the only reason he left. So.
I have missed this hot take where Mulder left because he was a deadbeat dad.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Right.
No,
Yeah,
I think this is an easy note to skip and Nothing Important, that it was Scully's idea. But I think too, like, safer apart, right? And this is from like another episode from Trust No One, but like she talks about how it can keep you together or keep you apart. Like it's safer for them to be apart. Like that's what happened in Nothing Important Happened Today.
Yeah.
I mean, I can understand why somebody would forget this scene, though, because you have to sort of wade through. This is like right at the end, isn't it, of an hour and a half of pretty like murky mythology, like leaden like drama.
Yeah, and who really wants to rewatch these episodes, right? And so people forget that it's right in there, but it's also, as you're saying, it's not, Skinner and Scully should have had that conversation at the beginning of Nothing Important Happened Today.
That's what I was going to say. These are, I mean, not that we don't care about John Doggett, but like at this point in time, we care much less about him than Skinner and Scully, who could have delivered this information better, maybe.
Right, and especially right after we just saw Mulder and Scully. I mean, we ended last season with Mulder and Scully kissing with their baby in their arms. We wanted to hear from Scully why Mulder's not there anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, and then a note about so it's the mobile, isn't it, over the crib in this episode?
And this is the way they described it at the very end. Scully puts the baby in his bassinet and turns the light out, and it says the camera is slowly rising to the mobile, hanging over the bassinet as Scully settles back in. It is motionless. As we fade to black, over the executive producer credit, we hear the sound of the mobile beginning to turn slowly, a music box sound we'll also using during episode 1, and we'll let the audience wonder. So I liked the little shout out to the ambiguity that they're leaving us, which is how I like my X-Files.
Yeah. And that works fairly well in the episode itself, doesn't it? The fade to black and all that. So, yeah.
Yeah, there are very few episodes where you get something over the executive producer credits. So this was one of them, and I liked that. And
Daimonicus, episode 3 of the season then.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think Cortlan knows this. One of my favorite things about Monica Reyes is her wardrobe. She always looks good. She has the best clothes. And right in the beginning of this script, it describes Monica in jeans and a suede jacket. She is easily the least official looking person here. And I just thought, that's good because she looks great. She's not too official, but she looks great. So
a suede jacket.
Yeah.
Different from her usual leather jackets.
Right. Okay. And this in the podcast episode about Daimonicus, Michelle and Cortlan had asked if it was scripted this way. It's very disjointed and choppy. It goes from scene to scene to scene really quickly. And they'd wondered if maybe that was scripted or if it was a result of poor editing choices. But I just noticed that there were 7 scene cuts in the last page and a half of Act 1. And normally, one scene can take up to 3 pages. So this is 7 scene cuts. Jump, 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 jump. So Clearly that was the effect that Frank Spotnitz was going for.
Have you heard about the 2018 study that showed half of prenatal vitamins tested had unacceptable levels of heavy metals? No? Well, now you have. I'm Kat, mother of 3 and founder of Ritual, the company making traceability the new standard in the supplement industry. I remember staring at my prenatal vitamins and finding all these things I was trying to avoid: high amounts of heavy metals, synthetic colorants, and unnecessary ingredients. So, at 4 months pregnant, I quit my job and started Ritual because I believe that all women deserve to know what they're putting in their bodies and why. I'm so proud of our prenatal vitamin. The ingredients are 100% traceable, it's third-party tested for microbes and heavy metals, and recently received the Purity Award from the Clean Label Project. You see, we trace like a mother because, let's be honest, no one cares quite like a mother. But don't just take my word for it. Trace for yourself with 25% off at ritual.com/prenatal. Did you know a 2018 study showed half of prenatal vitamins tested had unacceptable levels of heavy metals? I'm Kat, mother of 3 and founder of Ritual. When I was 4 months pregnant, I couldn't find a prenatal I could trust, so I created my own. Ours is made traceable, third-party tested for heavy metals, and recently earned the Purity Award from the Clean Label Project. But don't just take my word for it. Get 25% off at ritual.com/prenatal.
When he wrote it and directed it. So I think it's supposed to keep you on, off balance, maybe.
It worked. It worked.
I may have asked you this, Cathy, on the previous script episodes we've done, but is there a noticeable difference when the writer is also the director in any way? I suppose he doesn't have to explain Spotnitz here. Some of it, he knows what he wants,
Right. And that's one way it can be different in that there are fewer descriptions or fewer explanations of what they're looking for. But another way, and we'll see this later with Chris Carter's script for Improbable, it's like he has this perfect vision in his head and writes it all out. So everything you see on the screen is there on the page. And that's unusual sometimes because if a writer's writing the script and wants to leave things to the director's interpretation, then it won't be spelled out as much. But there have been a couple of times scripts that Chris Carter's written and directed that you read the page and you see everything just as it came out because he includes it all in there.
Yeah.
Okay. And this I'm going to read for everyone's enjoyment. The description of the vomit, the buckets and buckets of vomit that Cortlan talked about.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. So this is Cobalt. They're the first time he starts vomiting, right? This finally is too much. Doggett grabs Cobalt by the shirt, ready to kill him, when blah, a huge gob of thick orange goo spews from Cobalt's mouth, getting all over Doggett's shirt and hands. Doggett reacting with shock and disgust when blah, Kobold spews again. Impossible quantities of orange bile flying from his mouth onto the floor. Doggett nearly slipping and falling on it as he runs back to the door, banging on it. Doggett calls for a medic. He looks back at Kobold, who's collapsed on the floor now, more orange goo spewing volcanically onto the giant puddle on the floor as the camera pushes in. Doggett freaked out.
Nailed it. They nailed it.
Yeah, they did it. They got what they were going for with that.
Yeah. Mission accomplished.
Definitely the impossible quantities thing, comes across.
It's volcanic. It's volcanic.
Right?
Accurate.
Yeah.
It does sort of look like a science, like a middle school, like science volcano. Did you have to make those? It does kind of look like that.
The baking soda and food coloring. Yeah. But don't you think Frank Spotness had fun writing that? I read that. I'm like, yeah.
I'm not sure Robert Patrick had as much fun filming it necessarily, but yeah.
Right. Ugh.
Okay.
So
and
this next one is interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't remember it. I didn't go back and look again, but the description of Officer Custer is a middle-aged man with a distinctive mole on his right cheek. And I thought, is that supposed to remind us of Mulder? Is that what he was going for here? I don't know. And does he in fact have a mole in the episode? I can't remember that.
This isn't one I went back to check, but I was just wondering if, it seems to me like if it was designed to remind you of Mulder, it might be a bit more explicit in the script. And I was just wondering, are there other police characters in the episode? I can't remember. Is it just a way to differentiate this officer from other supporting characters? I don't know.
There are times later in the script where they say, and we recognize that this is Custer because of the mole.
Yeah. So
it was being used in writing the episode as a way to, and maybe he had an actor in mind, but now as I watched it, I did not take note of a mole. It wasn't obvious to me. He does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
I pulled it up just now. I'm looking at it. I did not remember. I just want to be clear that I did not remember that. I had to go back and look. I'm looking at it right now. There is, in fact, a distinctive mole.
Okay.
Assuming I'm looking at the right part of the episode, which seems like I am.
If it's Custer. So anyway, did he have this actor in mind and this actor had a mole, or did he wanted some kind of visual cue that we were going to see later? I don't know, but I hear distinctive right mole on the right cheek. I think of David Duchovny. So I just wondered, are we thinking Mulder here, or because there's a lot of comparisons between Doggett and Mulder within the episode, right?
Yeah, it looks pretty different. It doesn't look like David Duchovny, at all.
Okay. So I just thought that stuck out to me as I was reading it.
Yeah.
So.
I wonder if that's one then, like you say, I don't think we think back to this episode and think it's the one with the police officer with a mole, maybe doesn't read on screen quite as well as...
I will forever think of it as the buckets and buckets of vomit episode.
Right. Yeah, I think if you're going to remember this one, that's probably what you're going to think of.
Fair. Yeah, that's fair, yeah.
Actually, I also think of Teacher Scully. I like that. Those scenes.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on to episode 4, 4D.
4D. This was the most fun script to read. It really was fantastic. And I think it might be one of my favorites in the season too. So, but it was just really, really fun and funny and clever. The first example here, there's a note in the teaser that says the teaser will be shown with the film flopped. All visible writing in the teaser should be printed in reverse so it will be read correctly. After the teaser, nothing else is flopped. And I thought that was a really interesting choice. I'm not sure I notice it as I watch that things are flopped, but they clearly want to set up that we're in a different dimension.
Yeah.
And that's how they're doing it.
Yeah, I think probably is that one of those things you, on some level, maybe you perceive something is a little bit off, but you can't quite put your finger on it,
Yeah.
Maybe that kind of feeling.
I think we talked about it a little bit in the episode. It is very subtle. It's especially because obviously they fixed it so the text all looks right. Everything looks right. Unless you're just really in tune with, where their hair is parted or things like that. It's really
that's
subtle.
the kind of thing that we would notice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Here we have a description of, I liked this description, and it's it's when Monica first gets to the hospital. She just doesn't know what's going on. Doggett's been shot, but he was just in her apartment, so she's all confused. And she's talking to Scully, and says Scully takes a breath, worried for Reyes and feeling plenty of emotion herself. For her part, Reyes simply stares. Her expression says, "What the fuck are these people talking about?" And Annabeth portrayed that very beautifully. That's exactly what her expression said. But, I don't know. I chuckled at that. And then, okay, this description of Mrs. Lucas, when we first meet Mrs. Lucas in this apartment, this whole scene is just too funny. So he first comes in his apartment and his mother's just yelling at him through the walls. She wants her clamato and he's fixing it for her, doing exactly what she said. And she's still complaining. And then we see her for the first time, and it describes her as an elderly little bird of a woman. Mrs. Lucas lies in her bathrobe atop the covers of her Craftmatic bed. The bed whirs her up into a sitting position as we approach. Lucas hands her clamato, which she drinks with both hands. A walker stands in one corner. An adjacent console TV shows the titles of Another World, which is just starting. This room looks as if it smells of Aquanet and Depends.
So can I ask, can we put some footnotes on that? So Another World, what's that? I'm guessing some kind of daytime soap opera?
Yeah, it's a soap opera. Yep. It was my grandmother's soap opera, if you want to take it that far back.
Wow.
Yeah, she watched that one. Her story, she calls it her stories. So okay.
And what about Aquanet and Depends? What are those?
Hairspray and adult diapers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Aquanet is like a very distinctive hairspray. Yeah.
And it's when you see
very distinctive.
I think of like Edward Scissorhands, when they're getting their hair done and into this helmet of hair. Aquanet's the only one that's going to hold it that stiffly.
Okay, that's interesting.
Also my grandmother's brand.
Right.
So that's where
I mean, I think for a long time it was like the brand, like this is hairspray. Like it's like Kleenex, only it's Aquanet.
Right, exactly.
It's just hairspray.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, and this goes on. Lucas is going to go fix a sandwich for his mother. And she says, what kind of sandwich? He says, potted meat. And she says, I don't think I like that. Have I had it before? He says, many times. You love it. He rises, having found what he's looking for. He holds up a Ziploc type freezer bag, examines the contents. Inside it lies a human tongue, pink and dimpled, sliced raggedly across the root. Lucas stares serenely at it as TVs all across America instantly switched to Alias. That was so funny.
That's good.
I did laugh when I read those.
Yeah.
So funny.
And then we cut to Reyes' apartment, where we see a half-eaten sausage fills the frame. A nice visual segue from the previous shot for those hardy few still watching. So I'm reading this and I'm just laughing my head off. It's just the writer is clearly having a good time writing it. And it made for such good scenes, really, really good, detailed scenes. So I like that.
Like you say, it does feel like the writer's enjoying himself here, and it isn't just like this is a document. It's like a blueprint for the filming or whatever. He actually seems to be having a blast. Thinking that he's,
description I've heard about some of the scripts for Better Call Saul. And I get that from this one it's like the writers are writing down stories to tell each other. And so they're, just having a good time. Then they're putting all these details in and they're trying to gross each other out or whatever. That's what I get when I read this script. It's like this guy is just writing a fun story for his friends to read. And then it's made into a show. And it was very enjoyable.
And I think it's one of the things that works so well about this episode too, is those scene transitions that work so well in this one that did not, for example, work in Demonicus.
Demonicus, right, was jumpy, and you're like, why did they do that? And here, why they went from the potted meat to the sausage.
The sausage.
And then, in this final scene, it's we're now back in Lucas's apartment, and we see him. He lies in bed wearing full pajamas. He's awake, staring up into the darkness. We're close, looking straight down on him, but now we crane up, revealing, yes, indeed, Erwin Lucas is in bed with his own mom. And right now we're thinking, I turned back from Alias for this? For what it's worth, Lucas doesn't look too happy about this arrangement either. Mom's fine with it, however. She's on her side with her back to him, sleeping like a baby. Again, it's just fun. Just fun stuff. Yeah. And I mean, who comes up with this? What kind of mind comes up with Lucas and his mom? I mean, you really have to worry.
Is Lucas like described more in the script? Because I seem to remember in the episode he's fairly one note. I mean, it's been a while since I've seen it, but
about how he looks.
In terms of how he looks, but just as a character, he seemed a bit one note. Is that the case in the script or not?
Have you heard about the 2018 study that showed half of prenatal vitamins tested had unacceptable levels of heavy metals? No? Well, now you have. I'm Kat, mother of 3 and founder of Ritual, the company making traceability the new standard in the supplement industry. I remember staring at my prenatal vitamins and finding all these things I was trying to avoid. High amounts of heavy metals, synthetic colorants, and unnecessary ingredients. So, at 4 months pregnant, I quit my job and started Ritual because I believe that all women deserve to know what they're putting in their bodies and why. I'm so proud of our prenatal vitamin. The ingredients are 100% traceable, it's third-party tested for microbes and heavy metals, and recently received the Purity Award from the Clean Label Project. You see, we trace like a mother because, let's be honest, no one cares quite like a mother. But don't just take my word for it. Trace for yourself with 25% off at ritual.com/prenatal.
I think what we get in this episode is what we see on the page. I don't know that we get into his motivations or reactions. And I see what you're saying about him one note. As we see him, we don't really, we don't get a lot from him. So I don't think the script gives us much more than
that's what I was asking. Yeah, it's not like there's a 10 or 15 pages extra of stuff about him that's been pared to the bone or anything. No.
Right.
No.
Because I do remember talking to Kurt about that because we agree that this is like a bad villain. He's a bad, scary villain, and we just don't get enough of him to like raise him in the ranks of really the gross.
Yeah, there's
like,
not enough
Baxter
why
types,
or
we just don't have enough from him.
Yeah,
to get him into that.
There's
category.
So much going on with the Doggett and Reyes
and the shaving and the
we could have used more Lucas.
Yeah.
I mean, this next bit on our document made me laugh, which is episode 5, Lord of the Flies. Says it all. Nothing worth noting. Which we could say about the episode itself, perhaps. No, I mean, that's not true. There's 1 or 2 things in the episode, maybe. Like some casting or whatever.
I will always adore Aaron Paul, and I think he's great in the episode. But no. And it makes me sad that that's what Thomas Schnauz wrote for the X-Files. Because he's just so much more since then. But yeah.
So episode 6 is Trust No One.
There is an extended voiceover in the teaser. Scully's voiceover goes on for a few more lines, but I don't think we need to read that. It's just more of the same. I love it personally. I really do, but I don't know if I could tell you which are the extra lines unless I'm watching it at the same time. So, but this also has a description of the photo montage, which I really, really like. So I'm going to read that. So a moment into Scully's voiceover, an image appears, a satellite photo of Washington, D.C., and the voiceover continues. People we soon recognize as Agent Scully and Mulder appear. A montage of images, both still and motion picture, of Agent Scully and Mulder in the scenes taken from the first 8 years of the X-Files. The motion picture images will play MOS, which Nikole explained to me at FileFest means mit out sound, or calling for a silent shot, and will be chosen for their emotional intensity. but also for their composition, which should be as objective as possible, so to achieve appearance of surveillance footage. This may also be achieved by use of framing around still photos and tricks like turning the film footage to black and white or dialing up grain. The total effect will be a historic look at the relationship as viewed by an unknown observer. And I thought they pulled that off beautifully.
Yeah.
I watched it again last night because I love that moment. And I really do. I thought that was very clever to know which moments to choose and how to make them look like they were caught by a surveillance camera.
So. Yeah. No, I agree. I think the montage there works well. The mit out sound thing is interesting because I think it's one of those things where like there are a few different versions of the story about where that description comes from. It's like and it might be a bit apocryphal. Like there were a lot of European directors in Hollywood in the sort of 30s and 40s, and maybe one of them said something which was translated and it kind of stuck as MOS, you know, and but there are different versions of the story too, so I don't know. But I think the reason it would be in a script is like there are people on the crew who would be able to stand down basically when this is being shot if there's no sound being recorded, you know, so it's useful to put in as a stage direction. Yeah.
And when the reason it came up when I was talking to Nick Lee is I have a production used script from The Red and the Black, and I was having him sign it, and we were looking through it because it was someone on the production made notes in it, and one of the notes was MOS, and he said, "Oh, do you know what that means?" I think we decided that it was Chris Carter's, and then when I asked him to look at the script to see if it was his writing, he didn't understand what I was asking. He goes, "Yeah, I wrote this episode." Like, yeah, thank you, sir.
Great, well done.
I'm like, I'm not very articulate when I'm meeting my idols, so I was like, "Okay, can you sign it?"
Oh, dear.
As you were reading it, all I could think about was how they reverse it in Babylon. We zoom out in Babylon. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we go from them standing in their yard and we zoom back out.
Zoom back to the globe. Yeah.
To the globe. Sorry. Yep.
Yeah.
Just where my brain went.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay. And what's up next then?
Okay, there's the scene where Scully and the Shadow Man are talking about finding Mulder. There's just a couple extra lines, which sort of, so Shadow Man is telling, you know, he just told Scully, "I know all these things about you. I know, you know, and one lonely night you invited Mulder to your bed." But he's describing all these things that he knows about her. And he says, "I'm the future. I risk my life just being here, just to give you peace of mind." And she says, "Why do you do it? Why meet me?" And he says, "You can reach Mulder, and Mulder needs to know what I know, or he has no future. Maybe no one does." And she says, "But you know everything, so why don't you know where Mulder is?" And his answer is, he keeps moving constantly. So there's two lines about, you know, you can reach Mulder, and she's like, "Me, but you know everything. Why don't you know that?" Those two were deleted. And I don't, you know, could have just been they needed to shave time.
Yeah.
I don't know that it changes anything significantly.
I mean, there's also a line here about Shadow Man says, "You might not even recognize him now." And when I read that, I sort of thought ahead to William, you know,
Me
where
too.
we're supposed to think that
Right.
Spender is Mulder, you know. And
Me too.
like, so this episode, that line about none of this that we just are talking about now is in the episode. Is that right?
Yeah, it is.
it
The
is.
only two that aren't there is the "you can reach Mulder" and "Mulder needs to know what I know, or he has no future." And then Scully's response, "But you know everything, so why don't you know this?" So that line about "you might not even recognize him now" is in the show.
Okay.
It is?
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
I don't remember that at all.
Maybe it's not. Okay, I watched it last night just to be sure, and the only two that I thought were those two lines, but maybe he only says he keeps moving constantly. And the other part. Okay. I feel bad now.
No, I'm gonna see if it's in the, you know, the transcript.
Transcript.
To see if it's different than the instead of trying to actually pull up the actual episode
and watch it together.
Just like really quick, like literally just really quick pull up. Trust no one. But I was just gonna.
I mean, the fact that I don't remember it in the episode, like I say, it means literally nothing. Because...
Yeah, no, that's what I was thinking too. Is it
right?
Mean
and like I said, I watched it last night just to figure out which ones I was talking about.
Yeah.
because I wrote this quite a long time ago, actually.
Yeah.
But, so maybe that is what I thought of at first.
It says, okay, so the transcripts, the website inside the X says, Shadow Man says, I'm the future Agent Scully and I risk my life being here. And then she says, then why do it? Why meet me? And he says, because you can reach Mulder. Mulder needs to know what I know, or he may have no future. Perhaps no one will. Another car is parked on the main road half a mile out. If I see you haven't contacted Mulder in the next 24 hours, I disappear and you never see me again. Do you understand, lady?
Okay, so I got it wrong.
That's the end of the scene.
It's but you know everything and he keeps moving. Those are the two lines. All right, that makes more sense. That's more interesting.
So that whole little bit above, is not there. Because I do think if we had that, if we heard that, it might change William at least a little bit. It might make it a little more suspenseful.
Yeah.
Oh, we could understand why there was some doubt if it had been set up that he might not even recognize him.
Right. That something crazy
maybe it would work a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe if that had been threaded in through the season like 3 or 4 times before William, it would, I don't know.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then this scene, in the episode, this is after we find out that Mulder has jumped off the train and they're going to search for him. In the episode, Doggett and Reyes both get out of the car as they're driving towards the quarry. They get out of the car and go search for Mulder on foot, and Scully drives to the quarry. But originally, I thought this was so funny. The script had Doggett get out of the car by himself, and then Reyes is still driving. She sees the Shadow Man and runs him over, which is apparently Rhea's go-to move, right?
Yeah.
And in existence, doesn't she run over a super soldier at the ranch? Or maybe that was just in the script, but not in the episode. But definitely in My Struggle 4, she runs Skinner over. So
yeah.
And then Scully's like, they run him over and the car is stuck on top of him and they don't realize it. And Scully gets out of the car to run, and before Reyes gets out of the car, Shadow Man stands up and flips the car over with Reyes in it. And I just thought, okay, that's one way to do it.
Just bad luck with cars, though.
Maybe
it should not be her go-to move. She's already been in a car. She's going to be in a car accident.
Yeah,
the car's getting flipped. That's not good.
Yeah.
Not good with cars.
I mean, I've got to say, this next one we're going to talk about is the one I've been looking forward to the most, because I thought this was hilarious when I read this.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right.
Still trust no one. Still interest no one.
So this is the right after Scully goes to the coffee shop at the end and emails Mulder and says it's just not safe. Then we go back to the quarry. The camera's moving low and slow across the ground toward where the Shadow Man impacted the wall, where a fine dusting of red sand is falling from just over the top of the wall, dropping to the ground where the top of the pile of falling sand is forming roughly into the contour of the shape of a familiar body, the Shadow Man's body, lying face down. And just when this seems impossible, the sand-made body moves slightly. Off this, we fade out. So maybe you just can't kill a super soldier even with magnetite.
Ever.
I mean, all I could think of when I read this was, I know how much Kurt hates the spinning metal vertebrae in existence. I feel like if Terry O'Quinn regenerated as a pile of sand, he would hate it even more,
It's like, it would be insult to injury, certainly.
Right.
So, I mean, I thought this was really funny. I'm glad it didn't make its way into the actual episode, to be fair.
Really, because if we can't even kill them with magnetite, what's the point, right?
Yeah. No, I'm glad I'm glad we left this open. But perhaps the magnetite does work.
Yeah. Very good. Okay, so the next one is episode 7, John Doe, Vince Gilligan.
Yeah, and I just like reading his scripts no matter what. There's he has a folksy way of speaking even as he's writing. There's a really great description of Domingo, who is, I don't remember who Domingo is. Anyway, Domingo smiles the faint smile you'd figure the devil would have when he's offering to buy your soul. I thought that was really clever. I like that.
I like that too. Yeah.
And then, okay, I have 3 versions of John Doggett's script. And so I wanted to share like the evolution of this one scene. And it's the scene where Doggett has placed his call, trying to figure out who he is. He called the Marines, and they're just getting word. Reyes is just getting word of this, and Scully is joining the investigation. The first version of the script has Scully joining Monica in Dallas, and she was sent there. Kirsch approved her being part of the investigation, and Skinner talked him into letting Skinner go to Mexico to help out. And that's the first version we have. The next version, Scully shows up in Dallas, and Reyes says, "How'd you escape Kirsch's cost-cutting regimen? Did you see he shut us down?" And Scully says, "Well, Skinner was able to talk him into more outlay. I'm here to help you." And Skinner's headed to Mexico. So the first one, it's just all part of the investigation. Next one, they had to talk Kirsch into it. And then the final version, this is the episode that aired. Scully says, "Actually, he doesn't know I'm here, nor does he know that Skinner's headed to Mexico." So now they're doing it behind Kirsch's back.
Yeah.
So I guess it's just adding a little tension that we didn't have before.
And making them seem a bit more proactive and strong, I guess. And it makes me wonder with this kind of thing, like, so is this Vince Gilligan has reread his own script and decided that needed punching up, or has someone like Chris Carter read it and said, "Well, how about you have another look at this?" Or did somebody else give them a note? It's interesting just to ponder, I think, like why it went through so many slightly different iterations.
I tend to think that we get the different versions after more people have read it and their notes. I don't actually do
think it makes more sense though that Scully would be there off the record or off book or whatever, because this isn't her job anymore.
So much of what she does in season 9 is not her job anymore.
No, exactly. Like it's hard to imagine why it would be approved for her to come and do this. So it makes sense that she would not be actually part of anything or anything official. So I think that it makes however they made the decision, I think they made the right one.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so number 8, Hellbound, we're going to skip over as well. Nothing noteworthy there.
Is that because nothing makes sense?
Okay, so I read the script, and I don't know the episode well enough to pick out any differences because I really hate that episode very much, and I couldn't even make myself watch it. So
got it.
That's where we are with Hellbound.
I feel like if we do more of these script episodes, you can have 1 or 2 wild cards a season where you just decide to sit it out, Cathy. I think it's fair enough, to be honest.
That's fine.
I've been looking forward to talking about this next one because I have an opinion. So
good.
Yeah.
Good.
Providence.
All right.
Okay.
So in Providence, we have a description. Scully walks into Kirsch's office. Deputy Director Kirsch is here, as is Assistant Director Fulmer and senior level FBI personnel we don't recognize, including a man we'll call the Toothpick Man, as he most always has a slender toothpick visible in the corner of his mouth. And my question is, do we ever see Toothpick Man with a toothpick in his mouth? Because I don't remember that.
So I think we do see him with a toothpick in his mouth, but I don't think it's as evident on camera as they thought it would be. I don't think a toothpick reads on camera in the same way that the cigarette smoking man, the cigarette smoking man is the guy that smokes cigarettes, and it's very noticeable. I think toothpicks are much harder to pick up on camera. So I feel like he does have a toothpick in his mouth, but I've always felt the nickname, the name, the Toothpick Man, is a bit off because I don't think it's that evident. What do you think, Cortlan?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm trying to pull up pictures. I do not recall ever noticing a toothpick, but I can understand what you're saying, Carl. Like a toothpick wouldn't be the same as a cigarette. Like you won't see it the way you would see. I was trying to see if there was a picture and I can't find one.
Like if you asked me to describe the smoking man, I would say the guy with a cigarette. I don't think I would describe the well-manicured man I don't think I would describe his hands. I don't think that comes across that much either. But the toothpick I've always felt was hard to spot personally.
Yeah, I got nothing.
He's another one that if you showed me 6 photographs and asked me to pick him out of it, I couldn't. I don't remember him well enough.
Oh, I mean, I would disagree on that because that actor, Alan Dale, he's been in a lot of stuff, but he was in the Australian soap opera Neighbours, which became inexplicably popular in the UK during the 80s and 90s. And
Okay.
Actually, his casting in the X-Files and stuff like that, it takes a second because it's very different to his soap opera character,
Okay.
But then he's in things like 24 and, he's quite a reliable, hey, it's that guy kind of actor.
Yeah. Okay, I did find a picture. He does, in fact, have a toothpick in his mouth, but it is very difficult to see even in like the screenshot. Like it just blends right in.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not, very noticeable. And it's very brief.
Okay. It makes sense, everything that you're saying, that as written, they were hoping that would be his distinctive defining characteristic. And yet on screen, it's hard to see. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to hear that actor is noticeable to you because you know who he is.
Yeah.
If that were the case, yeah. But personally, I don't remember what he looks like. I think I've heard you talk about him on some podcast or other, maybe.
Probably, yeah.
Okay. All right. Should I do this one? All right. I'm being pretty snarky in my comments here. This is more. This is some Chris Carter setting a scene, and I'll read what it says and then I'll make my comment. Moving in close on the backpack. So a bunch of papers are falling out of a backpack, right? Moving in close, you see that straps have been torn away and that its contents have been spilled out onto the ground. Several large pieces of folded paper are littered from the pack, some of it burning along the edges. Camera moving in tight on these burning squares of paper to find at least one of them is covered in a design, what looks like symbols that have been traced or rubbed from another surface onto the paper. And if we're big fans of the show, we will quickly recognize them as the same markings Scully and Mulder found on the spacecraft at the end of season 6. And my comment was, and if we're really big fans of the show, we'll remember that Scully found them on the spacecraft while Mulder was in the hospital, and it was at the beginning of season 7. Although she does land on the beach with the spacecraft in season 6, and Mulder was affected by the rubbings, but the way he puts it, it's like, no, Mulder was not there on the beach to find the spacecraft with Scully. He was in the hospital at the time.
Yeah. So I feel like we can forgive the fact that he's recalling it a little bit imprecisely, except that he's saying that if you're a really big fan, if you're a big fan, you remember
it's
this,
like so cocky, and then oh, you're wrong though. Okay,
right. But you did this. See, this is the kind of detail that gets me every time. Like, come on, man, this is you switching around the details,
right?
Not us.
Right.
We remember.
And I think I totally get that if you're interviewing a writer of the show years later or an actor, and they don't remember the details as well as we do because we watch it every day. I get that, but he's like putting this in writing in his own script in his episode. Like, sorry, dude. No. Note
to self: only big fans will remember this inaccurate detail.
That's funny. And then an unscripted moment, or a moment that is different in the script to what we see on screen.
Yeah, this is when Scully makes the wise choice to hand her baby over to the lone gunman. In the script, she just hands the baby and walks away. But in the episode, she stops and kisses William goodbye, and that's not there. So that it was important to note that someone thought that through a little more after the script.
Yeah, and that's what I like about doing these episodes is that then it gets you thinking, like, who would that someone have been? Was it one of the actors? Did the director say, actually, she would probably stop and kiss the baby?
Right.
We don't know, but I think it's interesting to speculate.
Right. Was it Gillian being like, I would probably kiss my kid bye, like before
Yeah.
And who directed this one? Does anyone remember? Probably Kim Manners.
I don't know off the top of my head.
I don't either. I'm really bad at that.
Yeah.
Sure.
It seems like the kind of detail he would obsess over. Okay. Should we move on to Providence?
Well, yeah, except just to say quickly that I've just Googled it, and Providence, I do believe, was directed by Kim Manners. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I just seeing some behind the scenes thing from him. It just seems like that's something he would
Yeah.
in there. So either he or Gillian probably came up with that. Okay, Providence. There are some major rewrites between the first and second drafts. So I have 2 copies of this script. And the first one, it's Scully and Monica are... Okay, this is something I have to point out. In Chris Carter's scripts, he always writes Monica Reyes and John Doggett, and then Scully and Mulder.
Yeah.
And I think that's just an interesting way. Not everyone does that, but he does. That's the way he describes their characters. So this is when they're trying to figure out what's going on. They've just talked to Comer and heard his story, which I'm blanking on right now. I don't remember what he told them, but something about the child has to die or something.
Mm-hmm. About one, it has to be one or the other.
Okay.
Right. That's when he tells them.
And it's because it's Comer who tells them that, right? Yeah.
Right. If the baby and Mulder are both alive, then it's bad news bears.
Right. Because then something will happen. And if they're not.
Because he'll teach William to like something with aliens. I don't know.
Right. Okay.
You know, Cathy, if Chris Carter was here, he would point out that really big fans would remember this discussion. You know, I think.
I'm a really big fan of season 6 and 7. Okay.
And we would point out that there are no really big fans of Providence and Providence.
Right. Like,
no, that might not
which
be
is
true.
which.
I'm so sorry.
No, I apologize.
If someone out there is a big fan, I'm so sorry. I have insulted the big fans.
Anyway.
Yeah.
All right. So this point, Scully is she's saying, how can you even doubt what he says, right? What you've witnessed with my son, there's something wrong with him. And Monica says, I don't doubt what I've witnessed. I saw something I believe was supernatural, but I refuse to believe it proves that God would decree the death of a child, your child, or any child. And Scully says, what if this is God we don't know or even comprehend? What if over 2,000 years we've gotten it completely wrong? And Monica's response is pretty flip here. It's like, and you're the real Virgin Mother, or William is the blessed Son of God. Is that what you prefer to believe? And so that was toned down a bit. And in my reading of it, Monica, the script is, we got it in the episode. Scully is being irrational, and Monica is trying to calm her down and being the voice of reason, which is not the usual.
Dynamic between them.
Yes,
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So in this one, it's Scully saying, "How can you doubt him after what you've witnessed with my son? It's what I fear, that there's something very terribly wrong with him from the moment my son was conceived." And it says Monica has listened too long, been far too reasonable, and her only choice now is to match Scully's forcefulness with her own. And she says, your child was a miracle, Deana. I don't doubt the things that I've witnessed are any less miraculous, but your son is not an abomination, a thing that should cease to exist. So instead of mocking Scully, she's I liked this speech from her in the episode, actually, that she's putting things together. She's taking account for Scully's fears, but she's also putting some reason behind what they're seeing.
Yeah. And I think that's a good example of a strong rewrite. The rewrite is much better, I think, than the original was looked at. Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
And maybe a better representation of the character, because the original script is, like you said, it's pretty flip. It's pretty mean.
Yeah. I can't picture
Not a very
Monica
nice
saying
reaction.
that to Scully, who's worried about her son's safety and life. And Monica's not going to say that to her. Oh, you're the Virgin Mary. Yeah. Okay, and this next one, it's Scully's meeting with Josepho. And I thought this was kind of interesting. And originally, the first version of this scene, Josepho hands her a paper with an address on it, a Seattle address. I kind of like that. And he says that's where Agent Mulder was, at least it was this morning. And Scully can't believe what she's hearing. Her hopes were so dim at learning Mulder might still be alive. And he says, well, he's alive despite our best efforts. and goes on to ask for Mulder's head. And then as they changed that, Josepho had no idea where Mulder was or whether he was even alive. And so they just took that element away, I guess, to make it a little more ambiguous, because we just shouldn't know anything about Mulder's actual whereabouts throughout the whole season.
Yeah. And then we find out he's been with Gibson Praise pretty much the whole time, is what they say in the truth,
right,
isn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, to have him in Seattle.
Yeah. Instead of
Maybe
him
he
constantly on the move. Yeah.
It also doesn't super jive with what we just read from Trust No One, where he says he moves constantly. So, but maybe they were both moving. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. I kind of thought, I don't know if he'd spent the whole year in New Mexico with Gibson, or just that's where he ended up eventually, right before the truth.
Okay.
I don't know. I think I felt like he'd definitely been with Gibson for a decent amount of time, but
yeah,
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe even Gibson says he was living, I think it's this past year.
Yeah.
Again, trust no one, though. We
can trust no one, and no one really knows. We can't really. I think they're leaving it vague enough that, well, it might have been him. We think that may be him.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so episode 11 is Audrey Pauly.
I liked reading the script. It's a really early version. It's the very first one, actually. And it starts with the same teaser where they're having the cat person, dog person conversation. And there's a really cute description of Monica. They're sitting there having this conversation, and then Reyes says something, and we get the description. Whoa, we're starting this episode off with a bang, because if Doggett were to just lean forward a few inches right now, he could kiss Reyes, and she'd let him. A blind man could see it. We see it, and Doggett does too. And Doggett wants to. Why the hell wouldn't you? Wouldn't he? Reyes is beautiful, smart, and funny. They're both single, lonely. What's not to love? But something's holding him back. The moment is not seized, and it passes. They both know it has, but pretend nothing happened. Which I think is a really cute description. It's not my favorite part of this episode. I don't like the way it's sort of being forced upon us, but it's there. But what's notable also is this whole cat person, dog person exchange is not used throughout the rest of the episode in this early draft. They don't use it as a way for Monica to let John know that she's alive.
Yeah.
So
I thought that was really interesting. And again, I wonder, that seems to me like the kind of thing where a fresh pair of eyes reading the script might have said to the writer, look, you've got this cat person thing in there. Why don't you flesh that out a bit? Why don't you do something do something more with that? Maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that makes, and really a lot of what we know about Audrey changes from this original draft. She had fewer interactions with Doggett and Reyes in this. We see her alone a lot of the time, and it's her entering, she gets on her knees and prays, and that's how she ends up in her model. And that was all taken away. I think it's much more ambiguous how it comes about in the episode that we finally get, instead of, praying. And then, of course, her interactions with Doggett and Reyes are really crucial, I think, in making that episode work at all. So I'm glad they added that in. But what's really exciting that we lost from this episode is Act 4. We meet Monica Reyes' father, and we get some backstory on her. I guess they contact him, and he comes in, flies into to see Monica, and she has a living will or advance directive, like no life support. And Dog gets upset about this, and he meets with Mr. Reyes. Does someone want to read Mr. Reyes's line?
Sure.
Yeah.
You're the partner. She always spoke quite fondly of you.
Doggett looks to Monica, uncomfortable with the past tense. He lets a quiet beat go by, and then, do you want to do Doggett?
Yeah, sorry. Mr. Reyes, I know Monica made provisions in her will.
Mr. Reyes nods slowly, looking back to his daughter, letting Doggett's words hang in the air for a beat. Finally,
I still remember the first moment I saw her. I was teaching in Austin at the time, at a university. We arranged for her adoption there. Then my wife and I made the trip down to Mexico, to the orphanage. The nuns brought her out wrapped in a blanket, a little red-faced bundle, screaming, crying. What I remember most were her eyes. You could see the flame in them, even then.
You're her father, sir. You can go to a judge, have her kept on life support.
Mr. Reyes nods slowly again.
Her spirit, that flame in her eyes, saved my life. I'm not about to sully it by going against her wishes.
I wouldn't ask that of you, but Monica, sir, she saved my life too.
We can go on, or we can stop it there.
Yeah,
I think that's
recap.
mostly everything. And so it's just, it's nice to hear where Reyes came from and to meet her father, but all of that is deleted for time.
It
I'm
also
sure.
answers so many questions. Like, yes, she is from Mexico, but obviously grew up in Austin or somewhere, it answers a lot about Monica Reyes.
It does.
I wish we would have kept these things.
So do we get any references to Reyes' parents in either this episode or any other in the actual show?
They are there. You see them, like you see the two people, but they don't speak ever.
Okay.
In this episode?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they come in.
I didn't remember that.
Or
okay.
we might even see them like from outside the room, honestly. Like we just see that there are people. And I think someone says, "Oh, her parents are here." Or
right.
I don't. It's a very in passing moment where we see that she has parents, but we never speak to them or hear anything else about them.
Is there some discussion about her background in John Doe at all?
Can't remember.
I can't remember. I mean, we learned that she is familiar with Mexico and speaks Spanish, and
because she gets the ladder tell thing. She picks them out really quickly.
I think it's definitely somewhere in there where we learn that she is connected to Mexico in some way. But
this is the most we would have ever learned.
Yes, by far, this is the most we would ever know.
Okay, so episode 12 is Underneath, but you've already talked about that one, Cathy, on the podcast. So we're going to go to episode 13, which is Improbable. And
this was a really fun script to read. And it's what I was saying before. Everything is in there. It's the first draft is the final draft. There are no rewrites. And Chris Carter really lays out his vision for what's going to happen. It was just fun to read because it's a fun episode to watch, in my opinion. So I enjoyed reading the script. This very first description I like. It's where we're seeing everything in threes, and I'm not sure all of these made it to screen, but it's fun to read. So I'll read this for you. The birds are on the ground. They all fly away now, except for three. As a mother pushing a set of triplets in a triplet stroller wheels through, as three schoolgirls in uniform ride by on bikes, as everyone on the street is walking or talking in threes, as the number 3 bus pulls up. On the side of the bus is an ad for the lottery with 3 card kings featured prominently. The bus pulls off, revealing 3 wannabe gangbangers who bounce basketballs in time to the music, ogling the 3 schoolgirls as they make another pass on their bikes. And Mr. Burt smiles appreciatively, moving his 3 cards around, always tapping the correct card before he turns it over. So I really like how he set that whole scene. I'm not sure if we actually got all of those 3s in the episode.
No, I didn't check this scene. Like, do we know which things didn't make it in, or do we just feel like there aren't as...
I don't remember at all at this point.
Yeah, no. We can obviously check it, but I feel like it's one of those things where I wonder if that's to do with like budget and time. Maybe somebody comes to Chris Carter and says, "Well, it's going to cost this amount if you get in 3 gangbangers as well as the schoolgirls."
Right.
That's true. Yeah, all these characters. Yeah.
All of these actors. Yeah.
Couldn't you do the same with just XYZ? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and this made me laugh. This is a scene where Monica's insight has helped. We're not at the end. It's somewhere in the middle where she's figured something out, and she comes into the squad room and they're asking her to explain what her special insight was. And it says a hush falls over the room, and then Monica explains the killer probably has a soul number of either 4 or 6. His birth path, I'm guessing, is a 9. And she goes on with that, kooky explanation.
I really loved the numerical vibrational disharmonies. I love that line.
That it's a great paragraph. I don't think I could do it justice.
No, it's okay.
But it says, the hush over the room has turned deafening. The assembly stares at Reyes dumbfounded. Doggett is a little embarrassed for her. Scully winces. Like, what a hilarious description right there.
Yeah.
Doggett is a little embarrassed for her. And this is funny. Monica's talking about numerology and trying to explain it. And there's a script note. It says, Monica picks up a chart, shows it to Doggett. Note, we have a video showing these charts and how they're prepared. Don't worry, guys. I can show you.
Yeah. That's funny. Okay, so episode 14 is Scary Monsters.
And this is one where Kurt had mentioned in the podcast episode that the episode seemed like it was a first draft and it could have been used for it. I just wanted to point out that the episode that was produced was actually second blue, which is the 8th draft of the script. So
wow,
it's not a first draft.
I mean, if your 8th draft feels like a first draft, the actual first draft must have been something. Yeah,
it was long. It was long. It included this whole scene that was deleted. And it was Dr. Scully's autopsy class. And it's clever, it's funny, it's kind of cute, where she's trying to teach a lesson to her students about not rushing to judgment or whatever. And it's adorable, but it just goes on for like 3 pages. And there's obviously no room for it in the episode, but her conclusion to her students was, because one of the students had found one clue and then came up with a whole complicated way to, this is how he died. And she said, well, no, actually, if you just made one more cut, you'd find a piece of beef jerky lodged in his throat. And she says, a good rule for any forensic pathologist, don't allow your imagination to run away with you. You never go wrong starting with the obvious, which is, where the episode's going to take us.
Yeah. So. Yeah. It is a good scene. Like you say, it's quite a long one, so we won't act this one out. But
oh my gosh. Yeah. It's very long.
No, it's too much.
It is quite nice. And this next one I found interesting too.
Okay, so they're in the car and Layla has just come clean about what she's asking them to investigate. And Doggett says to himself, this is the original version. Yeah, this is good. This will sound real good on the report. Drove 100 miles because there's something rotten in the state of Denmark. That line was changed to, how'd you spend your day Friday, John? Oh, I drove all around like an idiot. And my conclusion was, apparently John Doggett does not quote Shakespeare.
Yeah. And I wonder who, somebody must have said, well, look, in essence, Doggett was sat at home watching NASCAR. There's no way he knows about Hamlet.
Right. Or he probably knows about it, but that's not the first thing that's going to come to his head.
Right.
Which I think is a shame. I feel like there are some NASCAR fans who like Shakespeare,
Yeah, and I think that, they're more worried about presenting a caricature of Don Doggett than a character.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is a description I enjoyed. It's when they're in the house and the fake sheriff comes to the door and he's moving in on Doggett. Doggett picks his moment and throws a move on the man, in parentheses, a different one than in the John Doe episode. He's full of tricks.
Yeah, I like that. I like that they're thinking about not having it be too repetitious. I think it's an interesting note, to be fair. Okay, so the next one is episode 15, Jump the Shark, everybody's favorite episode.
Okay, so true confessions. I've only seen this episode exactly one time. I have never rewatched it. It was the very last episode of The X-Files I ever watched for the first time, which means I skipped it the first however many times I watched season 9.
Wow.
And I really regret saving this one for last. So
like skipped because you knew.
Yeah, because I knew what it was. Yeah. And I was like,
Okay.
I knew that it was more of a Lone Gunman episode than an X-Files episode. I knew that they died. And I was like, well, I don't need this. And then I just skipped it. And I never watched it until like maybe last year. So
I will give you a true confession.
Okay, great.
When they had first announced the revival, I I was excited, but I hadn't really done a complete rewatch in a lot of years. And I was on a Facebook group and someone says, do I need to watch them all to get, and I said, well, and we were specifically talking about season 9. And I said, well, you should probably watch Jump the Shark because you'll need to know what happens there. Like, and I hadn't watched it in years. I just knew that it's the lone gunman died and we need to, you kind of need to know that if we're moving forward, because you'll be wondering where they are. And like, I felt guilt over recommending that for 8 years now.
Just carrying around this guilt for recommending.
I'm so sorry, stranger on Facebook. I should not have said that.
Yeah.
Anyway, my notes were that this was the final John Gilnitz episode. It was written by Vince Gilligan, John Scheiban, and Frank Spotnitz. And they, as we know, like to combine their names to come up with John Gilnitz.
Mm-hmm.
And the character in the script is named John Gilnitz, and they described him as clearly our terrorist. And I thought, yes, clearly they are the terrorists here. And then another moment where they say Gilnitz, whom we should never see again.
I think the thing about he's clearly our terrorist, I kind of like that in a way that they didn't feel the need to stop and explain why it's obvious. They just kind of trust the director to be able to make it obvious that this man is shifty and is the villain,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
I think that tracks with the Lone Gunman, though. Like, the vibe in general is like, yeah, the actor is going to make it clear that like
there'll be a very obvious cartoon.
We're going to recognize the
it's
bad
not
guy
going to be
without
subtle. It's going to be this guy.
Yeah. And episode 16, William.
Yeah, this one, I put a picture of the title page of the episode because it says William. Story by David Duchovny and Frank Spotnitz and Chris Carter. Teleplay by Chris Carter, directed by David Duchovny. And I thought, they're getting all those names on the cover because no one really wants to take full blame for it. They're sharing the joy here. Yeah, and I interesting, the story by, I've heard, like, David Duchovny says, oh no, I didn't write that one, because he didn't. It was story by, but there's only one little part of the story that he said he threw out to them as maybe we could do this, and then the rest was.
Yeah, I think like when Tony and I talked to Darren Morgan and he was talking about blood, like when it's a story by credit, it really can be very tenuous. It can be somebody's being, I think Darren Morgan talked about how he had very little input, but he got the credit anyway. It's kind of a favor kind of thing. And yeah,
I tend to think a lot of the story by credits that David had in the earlier seasons were he's talking with Chris and he said, oh, we could do this. And there was just like a small germ of idea and he got a story by credit. But,
absolutely.
Okay, I thought that the script was notable for what is not in it. Scully singing Joy to the World to William as she takes him out of the car is not scripted. It was such a sweet moment. And I like to think that David and Gillian remembered doing Detour and added that in there. And then Mulder in Scully's eye was not scripted. That was a directorial choice. And then, this last part was really funny. So the scene where they take William into the hospital, rushing him in there. And the script note is one nurse is taking William's clothes off to his diaper. She's sticking 3 cardio adhesive monitor pads on his chest. Note, this is actually what they do, but can we do it without traumatizing the kid? Or should we whisk him away? And I'm happy to report they did not traumatize the baby. They whisked him away. They didn't show
Good
that.
call, guys.
It's good that they're thinking about it at least. Can we actually do this rather than get to set and then it becomes a big issue.
Here's what we're going to do to your baby. No, you're not.
No.
Okay, so we're going to skip release and we're going to go to episode 18, which is Sunshine Days.
Okay, and another Vince Gilligan script was just fun. And I included this one because I thought Carl would enjoy it. There's a Springsteen reference. It's at the beginning where the two guys are they're trying to decide whether they should break into the Brady Bunch house. And one of them says, dude, the Brady Bunch house, Springsteen snuck into Graceland one time. It's like that. So I thought that was fun.
Yeah. And that is a story Bruce Springsteen tells on talk shows and the like, where it was like mid 70s and he'd just done Born to Run. and he'd been on the cover of Time and Newsweek or something, and he was in Memphis looking for an all-night diner, and somebody said, like, there's one, over there next to Elvis's house, or, go that way towards Elvis's house. And he was like, oh, wow, I've got to go there. I've got to vault the fence, and went to the front door, but Elvis was in Las Vegas, and he got kind of ushered off the premises by his security people. But it's kind of a funny talk show story. But then I suppose if, like, I, basically stalked a celebrity or whatever like that, I'm not sure it would be quite so funny. But,
would it be funny? Yeah. Would it still be funny?
And the next one is something I think we did mention
you did
on
mention
the podcast,
this, which made me really laugh. You mentioned on the podcast that there's this scene that looks sort of like The Shining, and this is how Vince describes it. 2 children standing side by side at the far end of the hall, staring at us. This shot is ripped off lock, stock, and barrel from The Shining and should look as much like it as possible. So that's what they were going for, and it worked.
Next one. Seriously, why? Okay.
Yeah. I love this question from Doggett. You two are fans. What are people still watching a 30-year-old TV show? Why? I don't know. Maybe because it's the best thing ever. I loved Doggett's reaction to Scully and Monica about the Brady Bunch. It was like,
he's just kind of incredulous, wasn't he, when they knew this stuff? Like, what?
Okay.
Yeah, the truth, I guess, then. The season finale, series finale.
So after we recorded our podcast episode about the truth, I was thinking a lot about the things that could have been there without the trial. And I think that this opening scene would have maybe been very impactful. This is after the teaser, before we see Scully and Skinner showing up at the brig, right? There's a scene, we start out in Scully's apartment in her bathroom. She's taking a shower, and her finger gets caught on her chain with her cross necklace, and it breaks. And she has to try to grab it, keep it from going down the drain. And she keeps trying, and she thinks she's not going to get it. And then she does. And I thought that was, I like that. I like that, the metaphor that this could be setting up for us, that is she going to lose her faith? Are things going to happen that she's going to lose her faith? Is she going to grasp it? Is she going to be willing to give it up? And I would have liked more of that and less of the clip show that we got.
Yeah. Wouldn't have been the first ever Scully shower scene, would it? But so it's because one son, I think, before, and I'm trying not to sound really shallow here, but it's a shame we didn't get another one. I suppose there's something about the water and how vulnerable she is in that moment, and I don't know. Yeah, and things, taking her symbol and ripping it away.
I also think it would be nice to do a little bit more with, like, the impact of what has happened. I mean, because I know we talk a lot about season 9 and, like, oh, Scully is just my baby and, like, running around, but, like, very rarely do we delve into that, like, the actual impact. Even after she gives William up, it happens at the very end of the episode, and we don't really talk about it very much for being such a prominent part of the story. And at least this would, like you said, kind of like metaphorically show this, like, terrible things have happened to her, and like, this is where she is now, and is this where we're going to leave her? Like,
and she was kind of in the periphery a lot in the truth, wasn't she? Whereas this scene would be, it's about her. Mulder's not there.
It gets you thinking about her and what's going to happen to her and the impact on her. Yeah. I would have liked that.
Yeah. Okay. So what's the next one?
The next one, this is when Skinner and Scully first see Mulder in the brig, and he's being all strange. And so Scully's staring up at Mulder, and her heart might be breaking, but she doesn't believe this can be real. And she says, "This isn't you, Mulder." Mulder smiles at her, then reaches out and pinches her. "You're not seeing things, Deana." And I thought, I'm so glad they cut that. What a stupid thing.
It is so weird. It is so weird.
It is so weird. And I know the point of this scene is to clue us in that Mulder's being weird, but that's just a little too much. I'm happy without that.
Okay. Another dramatic reading coming up.
Oh boy.
I'm not sure if I can keep a straight face during this one, but I'll try.
This is a deleted scene. It was after Mulder has chosen Walter Skinner to be his lawyer or his representation. I think I could read Doggett if Cortlan would read Reyes, and then we get Carl do the fun stuff. He's going to be Skinner for us.
Okay. So which line are we starting? Are we just starting from the dialogue, Cathy?
Yeah, from Doggett's first line there.
Oh, from Doggett's first line, okay.
There. Yeah, it was okay.
Yep.
They're jerking us around. All we got's a bunch of double talk.
This is crazy. I can't do this.
We're going to help you.
No. Never mind, I'm not a lawyer. There's too much damn material. Years worth of X-Files, of false leads and dead ends, facts that contradict themselves, cases that remain unsolved. You read these and ask what the hell these people have been doing for 9 years.
The conspiracy is what we need to key in on, what the government knows.
I don't think you appreciate just what Mulder believes that to be.
The existence of aliens, right?
This isn't just little green men. There's black oil, bioengineered bees, faceless rebel aliens, grey aliens, super soldiers, and hybrids.
But you know all this stuff.
But I gotta tell it to grown men.
All you gotta do is put Mulder on the stand. Let him explain it all.
I have no idea what Mulder's going to say 1 minute to the next. He won't even tell me what he was doing at that facility, what he was out there looking for.
Well, you've got less than 24 hours. What do you want to do?
I want my mommy.
And scene.
It's funny. I'd love to see this
so
scene.
ridiculous. Wouldn't that be better than the clip show? Come on.
I feel like if these three people are ever in the same place at the same time again,
Live
there's
reading.
an opportunity here to have them read this.
Oh my gosh. Wouldn't that be amazing?
Because I would just probably fall out of my chair. I don't know. I don't even know how I would react, but it would be really funny.
Yeah. And Skinner's obviously the voice of all these fans that Chris Carter wants to prove something to, but I want my mommy. I can't believe that actually is printed as coming from Walter Skinner's mouth.
So funny.
It's amazing.
Okay. And then another deleted scene?
Another deleted scene, and this time again Scully's holding her cross. This was after the death sentence was announced. We see Scully in her room by herself. She's lying on her bed, and she's got one hand on her cross and the other on her gun, which is really kind of a scary thought, that this is what it's doing to her. And then something else that made me think of what Carl said in the Truth episode is, like, if we had had plans for the breakout, it might have been more interesting. Well, at this point, Marita comes to Scully's apartment and tells her, I'm coming to warn you. They're going to kill him. And she says, no, I already heard the death sentence. And she says, no, they're going to make him die. They're going to do it right in his cell. They'll make it look like a suicide.
How does she know that?
Yeah, that was what I was thinking. Like, how would she know that? I mean, it's so contradictory to what we actually saw in the trial of her character. She was separating herself as much as she could. She was flying under the radar. Would she ever have that information, and would she act on it and tell Scully? So,
unless Krychek's ghost had told her, I suppose.
The ghost of Alex Krychek knows everything.
Yeah.
So as much as, I mean, this obviously is not a well thought out scene and was deleted for a good reason, but something that was more well thought out would have been preferable to what we got.
It would make more sense to me that Marita would warn them of something like that before the death sentence came to, like, she would say, whatever happens, they're not going to let this play out. Like, he's good. Right. They're going to kill him, or, you know what I mean? Like, warn them that this was foregone no matter what, as opposed to doing it after, like, there's like a plan, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that would make sense because she knows, like, the general operating.
How these people operate, kind of thing. Yeah.
So, I don't know. Interesting.
That would have added some needed tension.
Maybe. Yeah.
Okay. So what else? We've got quite a few from the Truth. Yeah, good stuff.
So this is the description of the smoking man's demise. It says, a fireball flies down the tunnel at CSM, flying right at him and incinerating him, vaporizing the flesh off his bones, killing him, smoking him once and for all. Until next time.
So close and yet so far.
Yeah.
But it's a bit like with the impossible quantities of vomit. Like, he's sitting there with his typewriter writing that the flesh is going to be vaporized off his bones. And to be fair, that is actually kind of what we see.
They pulled it off. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That fireball does go down the tunnel. That's true.
He got exactly what he wanted there.
Yeah.
Okay. In this final one, it's a description of the motel scene, and this version of the script doesn't have any of the dialogue. But I love the way he describes what we're going to see. The motel room night, which is where it all began for Mulder and Scully in the pilot episode, whereas he first told her about his sister's abduction, where sitting on the floor beside her bed, he had decided to trust her. Tonight, however, they are in bed together. Well, and talk is of the future. Now Scully's faith, religious faith, and the cross she's worn around her neck since the first episode suggests other powers are involved, and suggests that Mulder can perhaps change the truth. And tonight, Mulder will not go back to his own room. So I like that description.
Definitely.
Purposely, they called back to the pilot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and just as a quick follow-up on that, because on the Truth episode, Kurt had said that he thought the motel exterior looked the same as the pilot episode, and I think myself and Cathy and Darren weren't sure. So I've been back to check it. I've had a look at both episodes, and yeah, it does indeed appear that the exterior shot of the motel in the Truth is the same shot that's used in the pilot episode. And I thought it was interesting looking at this script, Cathy, is like when it talks about the interior and it says which is where it all began for Mulder and Scully in the pilot episode. Yeah, I wonder if somebody then, Chris Carter or somebody else, maybe later on made the leap to, okay, we're calling back to the pilot in these other ways. Why don't we actually use the same establishing shot? I wonder whose call that was. But good spot by Kurt, I think, on that one.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah, because sometimes you'll see that there'll be a description of what stock image we want to use in this establishing shot, and it's not in the script. So at some point they came up with that idea.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm not sure it works geographically, does it? Because
no, not at all.
The rain.
Whatever. And then okay, wow. So I think we are drawing to a close now. That was fantastic. I feel like the season 10 script episode isn't going to be quite so long. I'm confident.
You could probably do 10, 11 all at once.
Yeah, we might do. Yeah, and I do think we should circle back at some point.
Oh my gosh, I would love that.
Tick off the ones we haven't done, if you're up for that, Cathy, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
God, I would love that.
Yeah.
Okay. Did either of you have anything else you wanted to say before we hit the road here? Before we go?
No. I think good job, Cathy.
No, thanks.
I think this is actually an invaluable resource for the fans. I hope people do enjoy these episodes, because I do think there's tons of detail in these, but it's good that people can hear, to be honest.
I hope people enjoy it. It's a lot of fun for me. It's certainly my passion at this point with the X-Files.
Okay, so Cortlan, where can people find you online before we go?
You can find me on Instagram mostly. If you search for my name, Cortlan. You will find a lot of hand lettering, art, and calligraphy, but also sometimes you can find me in the basement. So I'll see you there.
Stuff. Thank you, Cortlan. And Cathy, how about you?
I am still on Twitter, Catherine Glins 2, and I post about the X-Files for now.
Okay, great stuff. Cheers, Cathy. And you can find the Xcast at the X_cast on X/Twitter. We're also on Facebook and on Instagram. If you search for the Xcast podcast, you will find us, including our Facebook basement group, where you can come and chat with other fans of the show. But yeah, thanks everybody for listening to this script episode about season 9. We hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, always remember, trust no one.
The Xcast and X-Files podcast was created by Tony Black and is produced and hosted by Carl Sweeney, Sarah Blair, and Kurt North.
You can find the podcast on Twitter at the X_cast, on Facebook by typing in the Xcast, and in our group, X-Files Basement, the Xcast podcast fan group, and on Instagram at the Xcast pod.
Don't forget, you can support the show by becoming a member on Patreon. Our patrons get early access to episodes, behind-the-scenes chats with our hosts and a thriving community of X-Files, and other premium interviews and specials. To find out more and subscribe, you can go to patreon.com/thexcast. That's patreon.com/thexcast.
We are also part of the We Made This podcast network, full of popular culture shows, including our Millennium series, The Time Is Now. You can find all of our shows at our website, wemadethispod.com, or via Twitter at wemadethispod.
Thanks for listening and keep watching the skies.